First off, I want to thank the brave men and women who work behind the wall. I want to thank them on a national level because their job goes unrecognized.
How do they try to turn a guard?
Well, correctional officer. Sorry, I apologize. But correctional. How you guys doing today? It's Anthony Gangi, host of Tier Talk. I had a great question sent that way through the email. The person that sent me this question has been involved in our channel for quite some time. She's an outsider looking in. She has a family member that's incarcerated. And the question she asked was, do we think that inmates look at us as role models or potential role models? And I think it's a great question. I love the fact that when we do a video like this, we get some good engagement, some good dialogue. So hopefully I'll do my video and you guys comment, interact on this video a little bit, because I'm sure she would love to hear your perspective. And most likely she may chime in as well, because she is very active in our community. I'll send her a link to the video once it's completed. But it is a great question, you know. Do inmates consider us role models? Do we consider ourselves role models to the inmate population? So again, it's from the outside looking in. So I'm going to give a perspective on this. So guys, again, if you haven't, to show Tier Talks for you, brave men and women that work in corrections. So please, if you haven't, subscribe, interact, engage, comment, hit that bell. The bell's going to notify you every time I post a video. Stand by for our sponsors. And when we come back, we'll be discussing us being role models towards the inmate population.
I wanted to attend a university that had an intelligence program. I wanted to look at problems different. I wanted to increase my critical thinking abilities. AMU offered those avenues to expand. Obtaining your degree as an adult, you're actually paying yourself and investing in yourself. You can't put a dollar on it, it's priceless. It's something that can never be taken away from you.
American Military University. Learn from the leader.
Thank you guys for listening to our sponsor. So I think this is a great question. She's an outsider looking in. She has family that's incarcerated, but again, she does follow this channel. And she knows for a fact that even when we do the video, we have really good dialogue afterwards. And that's the key, because it builds the conversation full circle. So this kind of questions like, do we see ourselves as role models? Do inmates see us as role models? Now, the funny thing is, I didn't get into this profession to be a role model. I needed a career. I wanted a salary, benefits. I wanted to eventually, you know, which I do now, but have a family. I want to be able to support that family, take care of my family. But I think what we don't realize is that when we take a position like this in corrections, we do become role models. Of course, some people contest it. They dummy down our positions without really knowing what we do. But have you guys ever been a housing unit officer? A housing unit officer, I mean, not to minimize the roles of any other position, but just for a second with the housing unit officer, man, they play many roles. The housing unit officers really know these inmates well. And when you're a housing unit officer, you're wearing many hats. There are times where you're an officer and you're pushing that authority, but there are times when you're a social worker. You know, there are times where you're a mental health professional. I mean, you're just playing so many parts, wearing so many hats. And I think because of what we do and the position that we're in, I think it kind of, you know, puts us in that position to be a role model because of the impact that we can have on individuals' lives. I really think that we can have very positive impacts on individuals. I'm sure right now there are people that follow this channel, and I know we always talk about the negative, but they can share positive impact. Guys, if you want, comment. You know, share a positive impact that you had with the inmate population. I mean, I remember, you know, giving someone advice, you know, and advice that they never gotten before, because again, no one really ever sat them down and told them, hey, what you're doing is wrong, or what you're doing is right. Good stuff. You know, someone gets a high school diploma, hey, congratulations, I know you worked hard for it. Good stuff. You know, or when someone makes a wild left turn, it's like, hey, you shouldn't have been doing that. And I'm going to tell you why you shouldn't have been doing that. And again, it's really sitting them down and providing that structure, which I would like to say is what we shoot for in corrections, you know, the rehabilitation aspect, but yes, there is structure to it. And it's great to have that impact, and they actually sit down, they think about what you're saying, and then you actually see somewhere along the line that they make those adjustments. You know, you see it. You know, and I'm not talking about the manipulation aspect. I'm talking about people that genuinely try to make that change, and they really listen to what you're saying. You know, I remember dealing with a few inmates that, you know, they just were kind of lost in their ways. and I would do what I can to direct their behavior, make sure that they were doing what they were supposed to do, and also explain it. It's funny how we find things to be so easy and what's right, but sometimes they live by a different code, and what's right to them is different, and they don't realize that what's right to them is actually wrong. So you correct them, and then they listen, and they make the effort, they make the attempt. And then when they get ready to get released, they come back and they say, Gange, I never forgot what you told me 4 years ago, or a while back. No one ever told me that. And that's great, because you got to realize that when you have a bunch of individuals that have been surrounded by negativity their whole life, all of a sudden you can come in and really create a very powerful impact on that individual if you're doing what's correct. And the funny thing is that they are our customers to some extent, so they're the ones that will tell people when they leave, like, hey, I know what people say about these officers, but that's not the case. And sometimes it only takes one person to make people think twice about that negative bullshit that's out about us from the media or from other sources looking to manipulate their little games. When you do what's correct and you're wearing that uniform, people may look at the uniform differently, because if you're doing what's correct and people want to sit there and bastardize that uniform, well, that can't be correct, because you wear the uniform. So if you wear the uniform and this is who you are, then maybe I was wrong about the people that wear this uniform, that stereotype that we had, that correctional officers are just guards that don't do anything, and they dummy down our position. What they don't realize is that we're a lot more than that, and sometimes that gets defined by the interactions we have with the population. I mean, more so with the interactions that we have with the population, however positive or sometimes negative, but we're defined by those interactions. So I've had inmates that been released that will say, I needed that time in prison because I didn't know which way I was going, and there were people that I met in there that really had a good direction for me, and that's not played out a lot. People don't know that happens. And then you get people that will come out of the system and say, you know what, man, who was a good person? Such and such officer. And one day he sat down with me and he told me exactly what, where I needed to be and what I needed to hear at that time. And, I looked at them and I truly respected who that individual was. And I think that's powerful, because these are forced interactions, guys. Working in a prison, we are going to communicate with people that we normally wouldn't communicate with, especially on the outside. And that's for whatever reasons, but the same vice versa. I'm sure we're not first on their list to communicate with. But when you go into the prison setting, we have those forced communications, and we can make the best of those interactions. We can really have an impact, because again, we're put in a situation where we have to communicate with them. We have to interact. So it's great for people to leave the system having respect for it, because again, we didn't put them in there. We just have a job to do. So even though they do have that animosity, because we have that level of control, over their lives. But I think when people start to understand why that control's in place and why it's needed, there's a lot of inmates that will turn around and thank you for it. And I'm living proof of that, because I've been thanked multiple times. So for people that may watch this video and say, that's not true, I'm not buying that, I lived it. And it happens. And it happens to those who want to do the right thing. And then again, that's on our end too. For officers or staff members that get involved and push the right thing. So, I mean, are we seen as role models, or do I consider myself a role model? Again, I didn't enter the field wanting to be one, but I think it happens because of the position that we're in, because of our interactions every day and the impact that we have on these individual lives. And I think if the impact is positive, the inmates will turn around and say, wow, I really respect that individual. That individual is truly someone who helped me do what needed to be done. And again, I've had that in my career. I've had people that did a 180 degree turnaround and never came back to the system. And then I'll bump into them sometime in the street and they'll say, Gange, thank you. Because the fact is that no one ever did what you did. No one ever sat me down and told me this is what I needed to hear. And they welcomed it. For some reason, it's not just about you being able to force the person and, to have them sit down and listen to what you have to say. They have to welcome it, which means that's where the respect comes in. trust me, if they respect you, they'll listen to you. They'll listen to your advice and they'll do what's correct. But my question to you guys again is have you ever had that positive interaction with an inmate? We always hear the negative, but just in response to this young lady's question, have you ever had a positive interaction with an inmate? Like a little bit of dialogue that really had an impact and you actually could see the impact, see the change. I mean, I'm telling you guys, in a world like this where you're surrounded by negativity, those positive impacts can be tenfold. I mean, again, thanking, congratulating somebody for doing something, like getting a high school degree or diploma, whatever it is, that sense of, hey, you did a good job, maybe something they never heard before. Maybe they're constantly being recognized for the bad they do. And then someone comes in and says, hey, that diploma, great job. Well, that's the first time someone ever congratulated me about, getting my high school diploma. Well, that's because we're thinking about you and not ourselves. It's funny when you're surrounded by people that do negative and stupid shit, all they do is think about how you can benefit them. So you stealing a car is good news for them because they're going to benefit from it. But you getting a diploma, they may not see the benefit in that. We do. Because we're trying to instill good. And at the end of the day, that also helps us run our units. The good that you do helps us run our units because I don't want to break up fights all day. I don't. Technically, I want a smooth running unit. I don't want conflicts. I want to see people moving forward, doing the right thing, taking advantage of opportunities, and the last thing you want to do is come into a unit every day and just constantly stop fighting and bickering. It's frustrating, it's exhausting, but I always made effort that if I saw someone doing the right thing, whether it was worth anything to them or not, I'd always make an effort to say, hey, great job on that. And I think that carries a lot of weight. You may not think it does, but it does. It does, because maybe that person never heard that before. And maybe that echoes in their mind during the time that they're in that prison when they're thinking of doing something wrong and they're thinking like, you know what, let me just stay on that path. And then a couple years later down the line, when they get ready to get released, they come up to you and said, you know what, that one time that you came up to me and said, great job on whatever it was that that person accomplished, I appreciate that. Because that kept me level-headed and that kept me doing what I needed to do to get out of here and do the right thing. And then you never know, you may bump into that person in the streets later on, and they may say, hey, I've been out of the system for 10, 15 years now. And all because of that one moment. And for people that don't think that happens, you have no idea. Again, when you're in an environment that's extremely negative, that one positive moment can have such a tremendous impact. You have no idea. It can totally change someone. So again, love to get your thoughts on this, the impact that you can have on someone. Do you consider yourself a role model? Or, I don't know. Just curious. As always, guys, the show is Tear Talk. If you haven't, please subscribe, interact, engage, comment, hit that bell. That bell's going to notify you every time I post a video. And as always, stay safe.